Dr. Pat Davidson, always a pleasure to speak with you. Now, you've dragged me into what should I call it? An event, a course
Yep.
where you're going to break down and discuss and talk about programming with hybrid training. Now, when you threw that at me, I'm like, okay, what is hybrid training?
hmm
I'm a mix of ethnicities. Does that mean I'm hybrid training? Or what exactly does that look like? Because,
Yeah.
these terms come at us hard and fast, and it's hard to keep up. So, what's your definition of hybrid training, and where are you taking this?
I think that what we've classically had in the past is runners run, lifters lift, and that's kind of the silos that they've stayed in. But we've also in the background kind of had kids now going through strength and conditioning programs, high school and college, and then they've gotten done with those things, and it's almost like, wait, I'm just supposed to lift? Because with strength and conditioning, the idea is to have a to prepare the athlete for sports, and that involves this amalgamation of physical abilities, strength, speed, uh, reactive ability, change of direction, etc. And you cannot accomplish being good at all of those things or developing those things with just traditional programs of bodybuilding or powerlifting or endurance running or something along those lines. So this generation that's kind of come along that has had a taste of I remember when I was a kid called it cross training, but
Bo Jackson.
yeah, you know, it's almost like, why would I just want to hold myself, like pigeonhole myself in this one little niche when there's many ways to be able to train. So to me, hybrid training doesn't necessarily have like a specific definition, but I think with this kind of lineage of CrossFit, and now we're seeing high rocks become very popular. There's people that want to lift and run and be athletic. And I think that there's very little in the way of program design that's been given out there on a larger scale for people to be able to follow, that's coming from individuals with like really extensive pedigrees in strength and conditioning and understanding like what's involved with developing an athlete that is very muscular, very strong, but also fast, reactive, agile simultaneously. So I wanted to be able to put a product together that would actually give people realistic program design and training methods that would accomplish those kinds of feats. But I'm honest with myself where I think I'm very good when it comes to the resistance training side, and I'm okay when it comes to the speed, agility side of things. And so I don't want this to just be okay. So in my head, I was like, well, who do I really need to go to that I know for sure is mastery level on the other side, and mastery level when it comes to the program design elements and the management of an athlete and the understanding of the intangibles. And that's where, I reached out to you to see if you wanted to co-teach this thing with me.
Yeah, it's an interesting time because, like you said, we have these sort of arrangements of exercise where people think like, yes, I'm gonna do all of these things at once and I'm gonna be great at everything, right? And as you and I know, it's you can't do that. You can't be master of all domains. You almost have to kind of ebb and flow and pick your spots. And I think that's what like you're gonna talk about on the strength training side and how it relates to other activities and how you have to make compromises in your training to get to that end point. And I think that's always the big thing. Like I'm obviously dealing in professional sports a lot, and even that trickles down to youth sports. And I have people coming to me saying like, I want to be faster, but I want to be faster in basketball, or I want to be faster as a running back, or I want to be faster in ice hockey. And so there's like a specificity sort of angle there where you have to address it, I guess, but you don't want to over address it, and you want to make sure other qualities are being developed. but it's a real fine line, and I think you're right. On the surface, it's like let's do everything, but then, well, we can't do everything. We have to separate, we have to sequence, we have to have progressions and all that. So that's where the nuance of planning comes in, and I think that's something that you do very well. And the great thing is you've done everything. Like you've wrestled bears, you've like done bodybuilding, you've done sprint work, you've done all, baseball, all these different things. So now you can kind of go, okay, what worked, what didn't. And I'm kind of on the outside. Like I'm not as crazy as you doing all these things because I'm just a bit of a chicken shit. But but certainly bringing us together, we can kind of figure this out and give people tangible ways to kind of address hybrid training.
I think to me, I see a lot of people just go to work out and they do drills where I'm watching and I'm like, there's just no training stimulus here. Like nothing's going to adapt because the significance of the signal here just isn't enough. And on the other side, people might actually be doing drills with enough stimulus, but the management of the volume is just chaotic. And I think I have trained hard enough to hurt myself plenty of times over, and until you do that, you don't really understand the value of someone that has developed really sophisticated program design to be able to guide you along through the management of volume and intensity across time periods to get you to the end product because you can't even get there if you're hurt in the process along the way. And in my mind, all of these different variables are a bit like playing with fire. If you're actually training with something that's a strong enough training modality to be a stimulus. But I don't think there's any stronger fire than the speed fire. Like really trying to develop speed and running at a high velocity, you're really playing with some serious rocket fuel at that point in time. And if you don't have a very well constructed plan that is managing volume, that has an idea of like what's probably a good idea, and now what's good feedback to be able to work from, to be able to adjust this as we're going through it, I think you're going to burn yourself really bad and potentially like give yourself more issues than you've ever dealt with in your life. And that's just the speed part of it. And now, if we're trying to mix and match and play the shell game with different training variables simultaneously, you know, one, either you're going to get nothing done because you just don't have enough of these variables with stimulus happening to be able to drive any kind of adaptation, or two, you're going to just go way overboard and burn your house down. So I think that being able to create an understanding of what are effective drills to be able to target and train all of these different qualities that we want to develop, and then how much volume by itself, if I was just training someone that wanted to be a sprinter, what does that look like? But now you're not a sprinter. You are either a football player or you're a recreational person that just wants to train really hard and have these components in your life. How much volume is realistic if you're trying to develop muscle mass and get faster, and you want to hold on to some ability to play pickup basketball on the side and have lateral movement involved as well. So, to me, it's there's a lot of people that just maybe they have a few drills, okay, or maybe they've got a cookie cutter program. But what is it when the rubber meets the road and you're really trying to develop and manage the health of someone at the same time? What does that model actually look like? What can we map this out and give you a realistic idea of how much to do today, how much to do across the week, how much to do across a training block, and then what's the sequence of training blocks look like to be able to develop you into some, this kind of a thing or that kind of a thing.
Yeah, those are very good points. And the what it comes down to is giving people the realistic truths on what they can do given a certain amount of time too, right? Like that's I remember Charlie Francis always talking to me about, all these trends, and people just accumulate a junk pile of exercises. And then they just think, well, I got to do this. Or you go to a conference and you see somebody do, oh, look, isometrics. I got to do four isometric exercises every day. And then they got to do velocity based training. And then they have to do, med ball. And then they just, they're just stacking everything on top of each other. But like you said, they're getting a diluted effect, right? So, and that's why a lot of the time when I'm writing my programs for speed, I want to figure out exactly what are those critical volumes and intensities of the speed. And then I can say, okay, well, now we can add on some weights and some plyos and some change
Mhm.
of direction. But the foundation is speed because, like you said, it's the most critical stimulus. And then do I have to cut back on some speed to allow the weights to come in and all of these things? And do I have enough time? And sometimes this is a big one. Do I have enough time to include an element? Because if I only have, 6 weeks, maybe I just do the speed and maybe some very basic rudimentary weightlifting things. But I don't have time to develop that plyometric piece, or maybe even the change of direction piece, because I've just been brought in to make somebody faster. So I'm always struggling with those issues, like of, do I have enough time to do this? Um, do I have to teach new lifts? Like I was talking to the Dallas Mavericks strength coach the other day, and we're talking about Olympic lifting. Do you have time to teach basketball players at the NBA level to do Olympic lifting now? We know it can be good, but the time element is critical. So I think when we get into these discussions, it'll be really interesting to see how people respond to, you can only do this much. This is all we're going to give you, and I want you to do it really well. I mean, do you find when you're programming for people, these issues come up all the time?
All the time. And the other feature that I notice all the time is the dietary phase as well.
Huge.
Because, it's kind of like, look, if we're looking to build some muscle tissue, we have to be in a surplus to do that. And then to have any appreciable gain of muscle, we're going to need to be in a surplus minimum like 12 weeks, and if you're actually pulling this off and gaining a decent level of weight across those 12 weeks, well, we have to be really smart about the other variables that are happening. Like, this is not a good time to be trying to escalate running volume during that period of time. But what's great is if I can find some level of maintenance volume, you
Yep.
know, and hold on to that quality while we're focusing on a quality that makes sense during this particular phase, which
Yes.
would clearly be lifting weights to be able to drive muscle gain while we're in a surplus. And really, good luck trying to escalate running volume while you're in a surplus. I mean, you're just it's not a linear effect of the beat down that it puts on you. It's like this exponential rise in how hard it is on your tissues, which is something that I think you have to take into account even with maintenance volume. Like, that which maintains might actually be decreasing as you're gaining weight under those kinds of conditions. So could we in fact have some sort of a auto-regulated automated plan where, based on these criteria, we're going to in fact, like, that which is likely to maintain is actually decreasing in volume across a period of time where your body is changing by gaining weight. So those are the kinds of real world issues that I've sort of dealt with personally and with people that I've coached and tried to figure out along the way. And it's not the kind of thing that's in a textbook. It's not the kind of thing that you would have like, oh, just this reference here. But the reality of it and the logic and the implementation of it is something where, hey, you could try to do it a different way, but I think that you're going to run into some hazards that hopefully I've previously run into for you, so you don't have to repeat the same error.
Yeah, that's a really good point about like we can't have a textbook because I'm sure you have this too. Like, hey, what's a good book to read to know what you know, right? It's like, well, it doesn't exist. Um, but I wanted to ask you one question as we kind of finish this up. When I was working with Charlie Francis and he was talking about like what's a good weight program for sprinters, and he said, honestly, like if you keep it general, like a general bodybuilding program is pretty good because you don't lift so much intensity, like say in Olympic lifting or powerlifting, that it disrupts what you're doing on the track. It's sort of a good general program that kind of hits all the muscles, makes you resilient, but it doesn't compete for the same central nervous system energy. Can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah, and I think that I just wholeheartedly agree with that. And I even from the perspective, people love it when you get into scientific speculation and mechanisms. But look, if you're training hard on the track and doing a decent amount of volume with high speed runs, your lower leg is going to take a beating. Your shins, your ankles, your feet, the bones, everything. You're just kind of like so even if you are just getting in the weight room and doing some calf raises, that can be unbelievably beneficial. And like, do we have a potential mechanistic explanation for why that could be the case? Yes, one of the things that we know about from stretch shortening cycle research is that we tend to down regulate mechanoreceptor activity with impacts. And the proposed explanation is actually that that makes sense because the violence of the collisions of the foot at high speeds is, you're talking about 8 times body weight forces through the soleus and gastroc. Oftentimes when you kind of measure those things, at top speed, 8 times body weight forces through the hamstrings. Those tissues are going to that doesn't feel good. All right. And mechanoreceptors are a big part of feeling and proprioception. It's essentially that you down regulate your feelings because the feeling would be so like painful and forceful that there's a benefit in not feeling that. But there's the side effect of like, hey, the functionality of the tissues can be compromised at a certain point because the proprioceptive organelle are in fact down regulated. So if you're getting in there and you're doing some reasonable, moderate loads with full range of motion, actions, moving the ankle through space, you're stimulating the muscles, you're stimulating the nervous system, but you're not bombing it. You're giving it just enough to kind of awaken the tissues, keep them online, and send powerful signals throughout all of the tissues involved, including the proprioceptive organelle. So I think that the really good word is resiliency with this. Typically like you don't need to lift in a way that is like loaded up as much as possible, like crush the skeleton and strain for 4 seconds to move a trap bar 3 inches or something like that. But I do think that sort of full range, getting a stretch, like having the muscles work like effectively, but in kind of a bodybuilding style manner, I think is really the way to go for almost every one of your athletes. Like have the weight room be very muscular and have the athletic side be very reactive and elastic. And that way there's less overlap and you're sparing your energy served for your explosive, elastic, reactive work for the stuff that's more like running, jumping, throwing, and changing direction. And then the muscular development is just very non competitive, but supportive of the ability to do all that stuff over here in the manner that you want it to be done so that it's more similar to athletics rather than trying to make the weight room athletic.
I think this is going to be a theme of the course, which is exciting, is that we're going to have very simple solutions with complex explanations, which I think is
Right.
that's what you're always trying to deliver, right? So, yeah, I think this is going to be pretty cool. I like the idea that we're doing it live so that, we get together. I think it's, you said every Saturday morning from 9 a.m. to 11 Eastern,
Hmm.
and we're going to start it in late October. We'll have some details here. Is there anything else you want to say about the actual format?
Yeah, just that, the recordings for this will be available to people. That's been a fairly common question. So if you're not able to make one or any of them at that time, you could watch it at your own time afterwards.
That's great. We'll provide all those details, and I just want to thank you for having me involved. I think this is going to be pretty cool, and we'll make sure it's worth everybody's while, and yeah, go that extra mile. So, thanks a lot, Pat. Looking forward to working with you.
Yeah, me as well. Echo that 100%.